I guess I'll start with I came out as trans when I was 14, or after I had just turned 15. I came out to my family. I went through a lot of old notes today where I was talking about why I thought I was trans, and most of the reasons were because I wanted to look like a guy, I wanted to be perceived as a guy, and I had just gone through a very traumatic sexual experience with an older man on the internet, thankfully not in real life, but it was still extremely traumatic for me and affected my confidence, my sense of self-worth, and my wanting, I didn't want people to perceive me as a woman anymore, because the reason that whole thing happened is because I was a female existing on the internet. So obviously I wanted to change my gender after that happened. So I got very active in the trans communities on Reddit, on Twitter, and spent most of my time online. Didn't do anything in real life at all. Really, I didn't have any friends. I didn't go to school at that point. So the only people I really talked to on a daily basis were the people that I talked to online, and that definitely didn't help. That didn't. I was basically consumed by trans media online, trans content online. So about a year later, I started testosterone, and I was 16. I had been going to a therapist who tried to tell me that she didn't want me to transition, and when she told me that, I was like, fuck you, I'm not ever coming back here. And then I went to a therapist from the Lgbt center. Then I went to a therapist from the LGBT center who told me that she was ready to get me on hormones from day one, excited and ready to just help me transition. So 6 months go by with her. Also, she was just an awful therapist. Every session that we had together, she would basically just talk about her life the entire time and tell me stories from her life. She was 60, and she would just tell me about when she was growing up as a lesbian, and I would just be like, okay, you're my therapist, but okay. The whole time I was transitioning, I saw myself as a woman, and that never went away. No matter, I was 16 when I started testosterone, and if I had been forced to wait, I thought that being trans was making me want to kill myself. But if I had been going to a good therapist, if I had been going to school, if I had had friends and had meaningful relationships with people outside of the internet, I know that I would have been able to reconcile my female identity with myself the way that I was. I was just living so disconnected from my body, and so disconnected from who I really was. And so I think that's part of the reason why I thought I was trans later on, is because of how I associated puberty with my feelings of being so depressed. It was pretty soon after that where I started to question my gender identity, because I had known a few people on Twitter, a few friends of mine, who had come out as trans or non-binary. And after that, I was like, okay, maybe I'm non-binary. And then I thought more about it, and I obsessed over it for months. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm trans. I think that I'm a trans guy. And when I thought that, I physically felt a weight lift off my shoulders. And I thought, oh my God, this is the answer to all of my problems. This is it. And that's what I told my therapist. That's what I told anyone who asked me. I came out to everyone immediately once I realized that I was a trans guy. I was like, everyone has to know right now about how good this feels, about how this is me. You know, this is the real me. And once I had that seed planted in my head, there was no getting it out. There was no taking it back. There was no way that I would have been able to realize that that wasn't me. I researched it. I spent hours on Reddit, on trans communities, FTM communities. I researched surgeries. I researched hormones. I researched how to pass masculine. I researched how to tell everyone that you're trans, how to go by different pronouns, what kind of pronouns there are. Like, I became obsessed with doing all of the research that I possibly could on the whole trans situation. And every moment that I spent thinking about it, I just fell deeper and deeper and deeper into this like self-hatred. Because I was like, well, why did I have to be born this way? Why did I have to look like this? Why did I have to grow up this way? Why did I go through female puberty? Why did I have to like deal with the anguish that being female comes with? And I just began to hate myself like more than I ever had in my entire life. Just everything about myself, like my appearance, my voice, the way that I existed, like in this physical form. I just hated everything about myself. And I don't think there was a point where I could have been stopped once I decided that I was a trans guy. And realizing that has been very hard because, you know, of course I felt like, looking back, you know, hindsight is 2020. Of course, I wish someone would have said to me, you know, stop. And I wish that would have worked, but I know it wouldn't have. I know, like, you know, some people were asking, where were your parents? You know, why didn't they stop you? Why didn't they tell you no? Well, I came out as a trans guy, you know, pretty soon after I turned 15. I spent the next year and a half pestering them every day to get me on hormones. As soon as I found out that testosterone existed, I spent the next year and a half, every conversation I had with my mom was about how much I hated myself, how much I wanted to change my voice, how much I wanted to change my appearance and my face and my body, and all of this just to break them down and get them to the point where they would sign the paperwork for me to get on hormones. And at this point, I mean, parenting me, I was such a terrible child ever since puberty started, which of course, like, I was a child, and I could have, you know, things could have ended up differently if, you know, but there's no point in saying, like, what if. Now, because I was raised the way I was raised, and the way that I was raised and the way that I grew up, I learned that if I pestered enough, I would always get my way. And my siblings can attest to that. But the way, like, I think I was honestly very manipulative. And I kind of just learned that I could always get what I wanted if I got to the point where I was just fucking annoying about it, and always never gave up on anything that I wanted. But I was also very obsessed. Like, I was obsessive. And I feel like there were many red flags that should have raised questions from my parents that didn't. But that's not their fault. I'd say, like, there's just, you know, things. I masked a lot of what I was really feeling. And I used being trans as a way to deal with all of the things that I was feeling. But for that year, basically from age 15 to 16, I spent that entire time, like, trying to hide my body, binding and going by a male name and pronouns. And my mom especially, she didn't want me to transition at all. She told me I couldn't transition until I was 25. But after pestering her every day for a year, going to therapy, and hearing different therapists tell her that there was nothing else that could be done, like the one that I had that only talked about herself the entire time. After doctors, especially going to different doctors and hearing them say, like, there's nothing else you can do, you have to transition your child, or else, they're going to kill themselves. And that's what I would tell my mom as well. If I don't transition, I'm going to kill myself. And so what are you supposed to do as a parent of a child like that, who is just such a problem child, and it seems like there's one solution that can fix everything? Like, I don't blame her at all for this. I really don't. Even though, there's many things that should have come up and been questioned. It's just, I was awful. So that's basically what led up to my transition and my life story. And so, yes, I did have dysphoria. I did feel like I was really a boy, and that I was born in the wrong body, and everything that FTMs say. I was a caricature. From puberty, I was a caricature of an FTM. Before puberty, I was a caricature of a happy little girl. But I became very androgynous at puberty. My appearance could have gone either way. I was very masculine. I had short hair. I had like a Justin Bieber haircut, and I was very happy presenting that way, being a little bit more masculine. But it wasn't really consciously because I wanted to look masculine. It was more like I was trying to hide my body because I really hated my body. And I didn't realize that it was possible to not hate my body. And I think transitioning for me was the ultimate form of self-harm. At one point, I was trans. I don't think because I can't erase that. I felt like I was a boy. I believed that I was a boy for that 4 years of my life. And so to say that I was never really trans is just wrong. But I definitely should not have ever been able to transition medically, and that's where I would say I should have never transitioned. I find that the more I get off of testosterone, the further I get away from like my trans mindset and like the trans like community of people that I was in. I'm just able to more and more feel like myself. And before, I kind of always felt like it's hard to describe, but there was moments like over the summer where I was just feeling like not myself. And I was just like, I'm happy, but there's something missing and there's something else like out there. Like I was like, my life right now is work, come home, that's it. And I was very happy with that. And I was like, yeah, when I get to college, things are going to change. But I honestly didn't expect to change so much, obviously. But I it's so hard. It's like I'm whole now. Like I'm one with my body, whereas before there was just something I had to hide about myself. That's how it felt. And so I've accepted more and more that this is just who I am. And it's just freeing. Like it's, oh my God. Like I lost like 50 pounds. Once I lost that weight, I was like, I actually like my body. I lost some weight in a healthy way. I've maintained a healthy weight. I like my body. I look in the mirror and I think I'm attractive. That's it. For me, that's what I had to do to be comfortable in my own skin. Like, and then I realized I'm putting on a show. Like I'm putting up a facade. I'm blocking my brain from my body. Like I'm literally separating the two parts of me that are like integral to each other. I was like, me trying to be a man was like me separating myself from my trauma and being like, this is like a mask I can put on to be comfortable right now in the world. And when my voice is going to stay this way forever unless I train it to be female sounding. It's never going back to the way it was before. My facial hair is going to be there forever unless I get it lasered off. So it might get thinner, it might get lighter, but it's never going to just go away and disappear on its own. Same thing with my voice. It might get softer, it might get lighter, it might get higher pitched on its own, but it's never going to sound completely female the way that it sounded before testosterone. It's so weird to know that I like permanently altered myself as a teenager, and I'll never know like how my body would have grown without that alteration, but it's fine. We don't have to talk about that. Other things that to note, like when going off testosterone, I have less appetite, so I'm eating less than I used to. I have less sex drive, which is a very big thing. Testosterone really ramps up the sex drive, and I was like, I haven't felt sexual attraction to anyone in like 2 months, like besides one of my professors who I saw on Instagram the other day. But literally, like, I don't have that like day-to-day life where I'm just like, oh yeah, I'd fuck that person. Like, I don't have that instinct anymore. I didn't have it that much before, but before I at least thought about it sometimes, and now I'm like, gross. It's kind of like grosses me out to think about something like that, because I'm like, I need to like get to know someone, I need to be close with someone, like I need to be emotionally connected to someone to do that. Also, my sweat smells so much better. It's like sweeter, it's nice. It's a nice smell. It's not a gross boy smell. It's like a girl smell. So that's nice. I think those are the main things. I don't really have that much else to add. I just want to reiterate, going off testosterone, it doesn't mean my body is just going to snap back to the way that it was before. I have permanently altered my body chemistry. My voice is not changing. My facial hair is not going away. My body hair is probably going to be more darker and more body hair than before I ever went on testosterone. There's probably always going to be some extra body hair left over. I'm probably going to burp forever because of the way my throat changed. And my Adam's apple growing. This is because of the testosterone. This right there. I was not born male. I went through male puberty when I was 16. That's why I have an Adam's apple. It's not because I was born a man. It just grows, like, because of the hormones. And it's really weird, and it's gonna be there forever. That's never going away, that little thing. And I'd say my experience with being transgender stemmed from mental illness. And that's not to say that that's every person's experience, but it is quite a few that I've seen. Feeling wrong in my body already, feeling, having an eating disorder, having self-esteem, self-harm issues, having the feeling of already being alien in my body, feeling like my body was foreign, going through puberty, feeling like I'm not growing into the person that I'm supposed to be. It's so easy to just slap a label on it and say, well, I was born in the wrong body. It doesn't really make sense when you actually think about it, though. My first thought when I would wake up in the morning would be my voice. I would just think, I have to go through my day sounding like this. Every time I open my mouth, sounding like a man, and everyone that I interact with is gonna notice that, and everyone that I meet in the future will notice. It will be there forever. And I used to wake up every morning thinking that would be my first thought, and it would shape my entire day. I was so young when I started, I didn't think about it from every angle. And by the time I was old enough to see more than just the one side of it that I wanted, I was already so far into living as a man and passing and having all my documents changed. I didn't even think about, I couldn't think about it because the only thing I could do was keep going. And I think that's the big mistake of letting children and teenagers transition, is that it's simply a one-track mind for children and for teenagers who are into this ideology. So, yeah, I have been struggling. Sometimes I just think that I'll never be able to just be a woman again. Like, that I just kind of threw that away for myself when I was 16. And I've kind of come to terms with the fact that a lot of the reason why this happened is like it was my decision to identify as trans and to want hormones. But I have a problem with saying it's my fault, because I think there are so many systems at work that let this happen. Because if you just give a 16-year-old everything that they want, you're going to end up with a very fucked up 16-year-old. I think 3 years is such a long time. My body is still working really hard to reverse all the effects. And even with my voice, I think my body's trying to like reject all of this extra cartilage down here. 'Cause it's like a lot. Like, there is a lot. I had a prominent vocal tract before I took testosterone. It wasn't like this, obviously, but it was creased and noticeable when I did this. I mean, obviously anyone's looks like this when you know, but mine was more than normal. But I mean, now it's just like out there, especially my fucking Adam's apple is so annoying. But I'm like, I don't hold weight there after being off of testosterone. Like, I had a really fat neck when I was on testosterone, and now I don't. And all of the weight that used to be on my neck is gone. And so it's left this huge, like, protrusion, because this is not how my body was naturally. So I'm like having trouble swallowing sometimes. Like, food gets stuck in my throat. I don't know if that is related to the testosterone at all, but it feels like not right because it is so far out of my neck, and I was not built like this. I was not built for this. And it's just hard. It's just hard because, you know, there's no going back in time. I think that's just the hardest part, is coming to terms with the permanent decisions, knowing that I made them when I was a teenager, fucking stupid teenager. I didn't know anything, you know, and I just want to prevent that from happening to anyone else. I mean, can I just say, like, especially for girls, like teenage girls, I was done with puberty. I was done with puberty. I was done growing. I was done with everything, all the body changes. I was done with the body changes. My body still needed to grow as into an adult, but I wasn't preventing anything from happening. I already had boobs. I already had wide hips. I already had periods. My height, I wasn't getting any taller, you know. Why do you have to put a 16-year-old girl on testosterone? Like, I understand why a male to female might want to get on puberty blockers at 16, because puberty's still going on for them sometimes. But not me. I was done. An 18-year-old who is more capable than a 16-year-old of making that decision. Why? They probably just they thought I was gonna kill myself, and I'm pretty sure that's like, just think about how fucked up that is. Because here's the thing. I remember that I told my mom at one point that I might die if I didn't get on hormones, because I can't stand to live another day with people seeing me as a girl. Of course, that scared the shit out of her, and she just wanted me to live. So, yeah, the parents don't know better, you know, and the kids are repeating shit that they've heard from the trans community and the mainstream media now, that are just telling people that trans people are just going to die. Like, you're just going to spontaneously combust if, like, trans people don't just die all the time like you think they do. A 16-year-old, well, to be fair, like, what I needed was very intensive trauma therapy, not hormones, because that didn't fix anything. It doesn't fix anything. It puts a fucking, it puts a Flex Seal on your problems, and then you're like, yeah, this is great. This is great. This is exactly what I needed. Then 3 years later, you're like, I want to die because I sound like a man, and I look like a man, and I'm a female, and everyone thinks I'm a man, and now people think I'm a trans woman, and I'll never be seen as a woman again, maybe, for the rest of my life, and I'll always sound like a man, and I decided to do that when I was 16, and now I want to kill myself forever every day until the day I die because I sound like a man, as opposed to waiting a few more years until my brain was developed to make a decision to maybe transition. And I think the hardest part of detransitioning has been coming to terms with the fact that I will never look like my 15-year-old self again. I will never look the way that I should have looked if I had just kept going through puberty and growing up with my female body. I will never look like I was untouched by testosterone. I will probably always have reminders of how I spent 3 years of my life doing that to my body. I might always have more body hair. I might always have a slightly stronger jaw. I might always have more pronounced eyebrow ridges. And these are little things that, for me, add up when I look into the mirror and I see reminders of the testosterone that I took. And I see reminders of the fact that I didn't grow up into the person that I thought I was going to grow up into when I was a little girl. I might still just kind of look like a guy. Because when I first went on testosterone, my face shape changed pretty quickly. 3 years of sustained hormone levels in the male range means that might be permanent. Even though this is the hardest thing that I have ever done in my life. Harder than transitioning, because transitioning was an escape from my old self, and now this is a acceptance and returning to my old self. even though this is harder than transitioning ever was, accepting that I've changed my body, being okay with it, and learning to manage my expectations of other people and my expectations of myself, learning how to deal with my emotions, learning how to love my body for what it is. It's a struggle every day, but I would do it again. I would rather be detransitioning and live with the consequences of testosterone and have people think maybe that I'm a trans woman for the rest of my life than to continue down a path of cutting up my body, weekly hormone injections. It would be unfair to my body that's just trying to keep itself working on its own, self-sufficiently. My body takes care of itself, and my body doesn't care how it looks or how I feel about it. My body runs independently of me. Why would I mess that up again? I think it's pretty beautiful. My body was made the way it is perfectly. There's nothing wrong with me. I have made changes to it. That's part of life. Things change. Faces change. Bodies change. Sure, it was a little bit more unnatural in my case, but things change. I've changed. I've evolved past the need to continue hating myself, to continue hiding part of me. I've evolved past the need for a transgender identity. The next step for me is completely accepting who I am and accepting that other people might not see me the same way that I see myself. Other people might have thoughts about me that I can't control, but I will never be in their head and they will never be in mine.